Hey all you Switch fans, welcome back to another great eShop deals video. Let's not waste your time, let's jump right into these deals. Alright, first of all we have Destropolis. Destropolis is a really great little twin stick shooter. You play as this little floating diamond and you are taking on all these different various geometric shapes that are coming to life and out to destroy you. This is just a really great, simple arcade style jump-in experience. Have some fun right away. You get to take on dozens up to hundreds of baddies all at once. The game is full of all kinds of crazy weapons, all kinds of crazy power-ups that allow you to sort of mix up each run, and each run feels a little bit different. This is still by far one of my favorite time killer games where I just want to find something that I want to play for 20 minutes. This is a big go-to title for me. And Destropolis is now at its lowest price ever, 60% off for a great deal for $2.39. 11-Bit Studios is back with another publisher sale, so that gives me another opportunity to again further highlight Moonlighter and Children of Morta. Both of these games are roguelikes. In Moonlighter, you are a shopkeeper who is delving into dungeons to collect wares that you will then sell in your shop. So the game is split up between this dungeon diving aspect where you're going in, taking on enemies, finding new areas to explore, and then the other half is sort of a town builder and a store management simulation. It's a fun mashup that maybe you wouldn't think would work all that well, but it is very engaging. The combat is super addictive, gets really tough. Thankfully, with the upgrades that you make to the town, you're going to be able to get new weapons, new skills, all kinds of better ways to better take on the baddies of the dungeons. And Moonlighter does come in two different versions. You can get the regular version, which is 80% off for $4.99. Or for just $1.79 more, you can get Moonlighter the Complete Edition, which includes its subsequent DLC, which is actually a pretty meaty experience. So that is definitely the version that I would go for. But if you're feeling kind of like a cheapskate and you just don't want to risk it, you could just get the regular version. All right, and then we go to Children of Morta. Children of Morta is a bit more of a traditional-like roguelike, where it is a top-down hack-and-slash dungeon crawl style game. You are playing as this close-knit family who is trying to repel back this sort of darkness that is taking over the land. Each member of the family has a very unique fighting style. Some of them are projectile-based, some of them melee-based, some of them use hand-to-hand combat. So there's a great deal of variety in how you can approach this game with all kinds of different ways of combat. And each character has a unique skill tree that again can sort of modify the character to your playstyle. This is easily a top 10 roguelike on the Nintendo Switch. You should not miss Children of Morta if you enjoy this style of game. And this also comes in two different versions. You can get the base version for 70% off, and that is $6.59. Or you can get the Complete Edition, which has all the subsequent DLC. That is currently 60% off for $10.79. Thankfully, if you own either of these games already, though, the DLCs are available separately, and they are also on sale right now. All right, our next title is Astro Bears plus Non-Bears DLC. Astro Bears was sort of a little bit of a breakout budget hit early on the Switch. The gameplay is very simple. You play as these bears, and you are moving around a globe. And while you're moving around the globe, you have a stream that is left behind you, and you simply cannot touch the other person's or your own stream. You can boost, jump, there's a jetpack so you can even create streams in the air. It's a really, really simple concept, but it works really well. My kids really enjoyed this back when it first came out. And there's absolutely no reason to buy just the base game right now because the base game is on sale also, but it's the exact same price. It's $1.99 either way. And if you already own the base game though, thankfully, you can buy just the Non-Bears DLC for only 59 cents. So a really good deal on that DLC. And the Non-Bears includes two new type of bears, a koala bear and some sort of mystery android bear. Both of these characters now have very unique stats and unique abilities that sort of change up the gameplay style. In all seriousness, I know this is a very unassuming looking game. It looks very basic, but I'm telling you, it is kind of a blast with a group of people. All right, so the next title is Lonely Mountains Downhill. I have talked about it before, but it has hit its new lowest price. So I want to talk to you about it again. This is an amazing little downhill mountain biking game. It controls super simple with just pointing your stick in whatever direction you want the bike to go. There's a simple speed boost. The game has a really good sort of sliding scale of difficulty. You could definitely play it and play it safe and go along the course that is preset out before you. Or as you get better, there's a lot of shortcuts you can take and real crazy maneuvers you can do with the bike to sort of risk yourself a little bit more. So I think the game is really friendly for new players and people who want to sort of scale up their skill level and really try to take on new challenges in the game. And don't worry, for you newbies in this game, in addition to the preset path that you might want to follow, there's also plenty of checkpoints, so you can make lots of mistakes and you don't have to worry about restarting on the entire course. Seriously though, I've put hours in this game. I find it super cathartic and it's just an absolute blast to play. And like I said, it is at its lowest price ever now for a full 50% off for $9.99. All right, the next game I want to highlight is Towaga Among Shadows. Towaga is a fairly simple twin-stick shooter game where you are taking on enemies coming in waves. You play as this sort of guardian who has the power of lights, and you are taking on these enemies of darkness that again are coming at you in various waves. Now, most of the game takes place in a stationary pose. You are on this sort of a podium, and they are coming at you from different angles, and you have different abilities and different screen clearing abilities and different types of ways to shoot them. But there will be times when you actually take off of the podium, and you'll be flying around, and also sort of turns into sort of a twin-stick shooter flyer game. The game is fairly simple, but it does have a nice little bit of skill tree unlocking with new unique abilities and different ways to modify your stats. But really the main selling point here is the presentation. It just has an absolutely gorgeous animation style. It's very reminiscent of the old Don Bluth films, which for me is hugely nostalgic, so I got sucked into this game super easily because of the art style. Now this game does go on sale frequently, so not a huge rush, but I wanted to finally have an opportunity to sort of mention it and recommend it to you. Towaga though is matching its previous low price for 85% off for $2.24. Alright, next is Zombie Driver Immortal Edition. Zombie Driver is a game that has been ported so many times on so many platforms. I actually originally played this on my Xbox 360, and even that was a port from the original PC version. But the premise here in Zombie Driver is very simple. You're in a car that's outfitted with weapons, and you are mowing down hordes and hordes of zombies. There are objectives. Sometimes you might be delivering something. Sometimes you might be picking up someone who needs to be transported somewhere. There's also a race mode where you can play against other players with power-ups while also having to avoid all the zombies all over the tracks. This game admittedly does have a little bit of jank to it. It's a bit rough around the corners, which is a little bit crazy considering how many times it's been re-released and could have been ironed out. But it just has a sort of simple charm to it, just a simple, pleasurable experience of just absolutely decimating hundreds and hundreds of thousands of zombies. So like I said, a little bit of jank, but now is the time to pick it out when it's very budget priced. And Zombie Driver is currently 80% off for $2.99. All right, next we have the Panzer Dragoon Remake. Now, if you're not familiar with the Panzer Dragoon games, these are really charming on-rail shooters where you are riding a dragon taking on baddies. If you've never played Panzer Dragoon, but you've played Star Fox, I think this one's going to appeal to you quite a bit. This game, if I remember right, had a little bit of a rough release on the Switch, but so far it has been patched a couple times, and from my understanding, it's much improved. This is definitely a series, though, that has a very dedicated fan base, definitely a cult classic now. And right now you can get it at its lowest price ever for a full 90% off for only $2.49. It's never even been close to this cheap, so now is definitely the time to get it. All right, our next title is X-Morph Defense. Fans of tower defense games are going to really enjoy this one. You play as an alien species invading and taking on humanity. So you've got the tower defense gameplay again, setting up towers, developing a path that your enemies are going to have to go through. But then you also have the aspect of the game where you play in the X-Morph Fighter, which is actually a jet that you fly around these arenas and can take on enemies in a shooter-style gameplay. So it's a really fun mix of both gameplay of strategizing with those towers, but then as just a ton of action to be able to run around the courses and take them on in that twin-stick shooter style. I think this title is really underrated. I think that fact that you can jump into a fighter and take on the enemies really solves a problem with some of these tower defense games, which is that at the beginning, they're a little bit boring, waiting for the enemies to come to you. But now you can go to the enemies and you can take them on head on as they're coming down these pathways. So the game has much less of a feel of downtime, which is really nice. This game does have two different versions you can choose from. You can get the base version, which is currently 80% off for only $3.99. Or you can get the complete edition, which is 80% off for $5.99. Personally, if it was me, I would get the complete edition, only $2 more, and it comes with some really nice DLC. But those DLC packs are also individually on sale for only 99 cents, so in the future you could always pick them up on another sale. All right, and Team 17 has another big publisher sale. You'll see a bunch of their games in the sizzle reel, but I just wanted to highlight Neon Abyss again. Neon Abyss is one of my top favorite roguelike games on the Switch. It's just this beautiful neon saturated twin stick platformer shooter. It's got tons of personality, just an insane number of weapons and modifications. One of my favorite things about this game is you never have to drop any modifications. Every time you get something, it just keeps getting added to your character. What's even better is that there is a physical representation of that on the screen. So a lot of times you'll see your guy just has tons of crap on him, and it's just hysterical because you just keep stacking and stacking and stacking abilities to the point where you're almost like a god if you have a good run. You can also collect eggs in a sort of Pokemon style thing where you get these little assistant creatures that would help you in different ways. It's just one of those roguelikes that just has tons to discover. There's always something new every run, it feels like. This game absolutely never got old for me. In fact, I think I'm going to go back to it soon and play it some more. But if you haven't checked out Neon Abyss before, now as good as a time as any. It is currently 50% off for only $9.99. All right, now we're moving on to one of my favorite games that came out last year, Beastbreaker. In Beastbreaker, you take on the role of a tiny little mouse warrior named Skipper. This game is very unique. It is sort of like pinball, I guess. But basically the way you play is you aim Skip in a certain direction, you launch her off, and she will hit the beast in different points as she's bouncing around. So these beasts are sort of made up of these geometric shapes, and they all have different hit points, and the whole idea is you are trying to get to its core. So like I said, you're chipping away at all these armor points, trying to get to these cores, and eventually destroy enough of the cores to get rid of the beast altogether. It's really so much more strategic than it looks, though. You have multiple weapon types that you can choose from, including projectile weapons, hammers, swords, all kinds of different weapons. And there are also different skill sets you can take into battle that will change even among the weapons how they are used. So for instance, maybe you could take in some sort of like poison arrows, and those arrows won't do much damage, but they'll continually damage their shielding over time. So then you might be able to plan, okay, this creature's going to move around a couple times, and once it gets to this position, then the armor is going to drop, and then I'll be able to hit the core. So just imagine that scenario, but all kinds of different power-ups that do different things to the armor. I hope I'm selling you on this game. I really enjoyed it. If I would have made a top 10 favorite games last year on the Switch, this would have made it into that list. I think it really flew under the radar. I think it's super underrated, and I hope more people try it out. This is only the second time it's gone on sale. It is 20% off, which brings it down to $12 even. I know that's not a super cheap sale, so if you're not interested, at least wishlist this so maybe you can try it out in the future. By the way, I hope you're enjoying these deal videos. If you find them helpful, go and click that subscribe button. And now we're going to move on to a new section called Caught My Eye. So for now, I'm going to call this section Caught My Eye. Basically, I just want to be able to start talking about games that I haven't played, but they look good or at least look interesting, and they're having a really great sale right now. All right, first of all, we have the Switch port of Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Dragon's Dogma is a bit of a cult classic now from Capcom. But if you're a fan of action RPGs with big open worlds, I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Like I said, this is not a game I've played, but I've heard nothing but really positive reviews about this one. And it's hitting its new lowest price for 67% off for only $9.99. All right, also just going on sale now is Green Hell. Green Hell is a survival game where you are thrown into a jungle and you are having to survive, create tools and weapons, create shelter and camps. You need to learn how to hunt and also how to defend yourself. Honestly, these survival games are not really my cup of tea, but I know that this is a very popular one, and I had to include it because it is by far now at its lowest price ever. It's currently at a rock bottom 90% off for only $2.49. So if you enjoy this survival genre, now could not be a better time to pick this one up. And even if you're just curious and you've never tried one of these games, well, maybe now is the time to try it if it's such a cheap budget price. All right, the next game that caught my eye is Lost Orbit Terminal Velocity. Since I'm scouring these deal pages a lot, I see a lot of the same games come up. But when I saw the icon for this, I thought to myself, I've never seen this game come up. And sure enough, this game hasn't had a sale in over 2 years. So I did a little bit of research, saw it had some really positive reviews, and it looks pretty interesting actually. Basically in this game, you play as a marooned astronaut and you are trying to find your way back to human civilization. And you are playing in these sort of, it looks almost like a shoot 'em up style courses, but there's no actual shooting, but you are guiding your astronaut through these courses where you are zipping around at really fast speeds, hitting ramps and these little warp zones. The gameplay looks pretty simple, but all the reviews I've seen say that it's pretty darn addictive and it works really well. The game is fully narrated and apparently hits some sort of serious tones of thinking about life and death and loneliness. So yeah, I like what I see. It's got a 74 on Metacritic, which isn't too shabby. And like I said, this hasn't gone on sale for over 2 years, so I thought if you're interested, now's probably the time you want to check it out. And it is currently 80% off for only $1.99. All right, the next game that caught my eye was Flat Heroes. Flat Heroes is a very simple, very clean looking sort of precision platformer. The controls are simple. You can basically run, jump, dash, or attack. You've got over 300 handcrafted levels, 10 unique bosses. It does look like it's very challenging, but you can also play it in co-op, which I guess alleviates a little bit of the difficulty. This game, though, is really well reviewed. It's got an 82 on Metacritic, and the user review score is pretty much about the same, so it seems like it's got some pretty universal acclaim. Now, Flat Heroes is currently 80% off for $1.99. The game does go on sale semi-frequently, but I did notice a pattern where the $1.99 price only comes up one time a year, always in May. So it seems like they have a sort of a schedule for their prices. So if you want it this cheap, you're gonna have to wait a whole nother year if you don't pick it up on this sale. All right, the next game that caught my eye is River City Melee Mach. I'm a huge fan of the River City games, and this came out like in 2019, and I've never even heard of it. But basically, this is a River City a competitive battle royale style game. You can actually choose from what I think I've heard is like around 180 different River City characters, which is kind of insane. And you're thrown into these little arenas. You're taking each other on, different power-ups, different sort of hazards and obstacles in each arena. It looks like some silly fun. It looks pretty well reviewed. And like I said, somehow this completely flew under my radar. I had never heard of it before this. And it is currently at its lowest price ever for 66% off for $4.76. All right, the next game that caught my eye is Heaven Dust 2. Heaven Dust 2 actually came out earlier this year. Totally hadn't heard of it. But apparently the easiest way to describe this game is sort of a slightly chibi-esque top-down Resident Evil clone. But yeah, just looking at it right away, you can tell it takes inspiration from Resident Evil. It has a lot of the same trappings of making your way through this sort of facility, taking on very slow, shambling zombies, having to conserve ammo and resources. I'm not really the biggest fan of the old Resident Evil games. I was never really a fan of the tank-like controls, so thankfully this game sort of negates that by giving you full, just sort of like a twin-stick style input, which I personally think is a big improvement over the old Resident Evil style, but a lot of people are real nostalgic for that tank control. But yeah, this is another one that flew under my radar. It's got an 83 on Metacritic and an 83 from the user review scores on Metacritic. So Resident Evil fans should definitely rejoice. They've got a great new looking title to check out. And it is at its lowest price ever since releasing for 33% off for $9.99. All right, the next game that caught my eye is Way of the Passive Fist. Way of the Passive Fist, from my understanding, is kind of a beat 'em up. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but there was a classic episode of The Simpsons where Homer became a boxer. And his strategy was to basically just let the enemies keep on hitting him until they would tire out and he would just kind of push them down. Well, basically, that concept has been turned into this game. So instead of fighting the enemies directly, you basically, through some sort of rhythm-style movement, are deflecting all of their attacks. And then as they tire down, you can eventually just sort of shove them down. Now, all this deflecting, though, does build up a combo meter, which you can then use to sort of have a few special attacks, which you will need to take on the bosses, apparently, in this game. It's just a really unique, charming idea. You don't really see anything else like it. Has a really beautiful art style. This game does not seem to go on sale very often, only about once to twice per year, so now is probably the time to pick it up if you're looking interested in it. And right now, it is 80% off for a very cheap $2.99. All right, and the final game to catch my eye is LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. This game is now getting its first sale. I don't need to say much about these LEGO games. You know what they are. All I will say is that this new entry is extremely well reviewed. They have really mixed up the formula with a lot of new elements. I'd encourage you to find maybe a full review so that you can see all the new changes, but it is definitely a very robust new LEGO Star Wars experience. And right now you can get it 20% off for $47.99. For me personally, I'm still going to hold out for a cheaper deal, but for those of you who really want it and you don't want to wait much longer, it seems like a decent price to jump in. All right, those are the last of my recommendations, but hold on, here comes the sizzle reel with a bunch more deals to check out. All right, all you tricksters, I hope you enjoyed the deals this time. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, I hope you have great gaming. Bye-bye.